Okay, so now that we've downloaded the files that we need, we're going to need to do a little bit of setup in the new location. And this is possibly going to be the most complicated part of this entire process. It's not terribly complicated, but this is the part that intimidates people the most. But I'm going to try to simplify things for you. So the new location, okay, new location.robobunny.attack.com. This particular location, this subdomain I set up on my Bluehost hosting package. It's just a shared web hosting package, okay. And I've currently logged in to the administrative panel of my Bluehost package. And I'm using Bluehost for the example here for a deliberate reason. That's because Bluehost uses what's called cPanel as their administrative interface. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm inside cPanel. cPanel is a really commonly used administrative interface for managing web servers. And lots of shared web hosting providers use this. And so that's why I like to use it as an example, because chances are if you're using a shared web hosting provider, there's a very good possibility that they are using a version of cPanel as well too. And so everything that I do here is going to look really familiar, okay? The pictures might look a little bit different. There might be different options, but more or less, you're going to see something that looks like this, okay? If you're using a different web hosting provider, maybe like DreamHost or possibly GoDaddy, that is it might look a little bit different, okay? And so therefore you're going to have to you're going to do a little bit more reading and or consult their documentation for this step. But I will try to explain these steps at a more fundamental level so that no matter what the interface looks like, you'll be able to do this on your web server. What we need to do is we need to create a database, specifically a MySQL database. And this is sort of the database, or think of it as a receptacle for handling all of the new data, all the data that was currently associated with your website at the old location. We need kind of a holding place for it in the new location. And we know that MySQL databases are what power WordPress websites. And so we need to create a new MySQL database. Now, of course, it wouldn't be that simple. We actually, in addition to that, we also need to create a valid MySQL user and password to go along with that MySQL database. The specifics as to why that is a little outside the scope of this course, but I'll try to keep things as simple as possible. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for something that says MySQL, okay? And I'm scroll down about 2/3 of the way down here, and I see a section here that says MySQL databases, okay? If you're using cPanel, it's going to look an awful lot like this. If you're using a different type of administrative interface, just look for databases or database tools or MySQL or create new database. You're looking for something that looks like that, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And this is possibly, out of all the different admin panels, probably the least intuitive one I've found. So it's good that I'm demonstrating it in this one, because this is probably going to be a little bit more complex than some of the other systems you might see out there. We can do this in either order. We need to create a database, and then we need to create a database user and password. We can do them in any order we want. Why don't we start off by creating the user and password? To do that, it's on the same page. I'm just scrolling down to about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way down here. And we see here an option to add a new user, okay? I like to think of this as sort of like the key that's going to unlock the database, okay? You're sort of creating a specific set of authentication that will be used to ensure that only your website can access this particular database. And so there's obvious security reasons for that. So we want to keep this secure. We don't want this to be obvious. We want to make sure we're using a secure password. Let's start by creating the username. Creating the username, this can be anything you want. Try not to make it too obvious. How about I'm going to call mine, I'm going to delete everything afterwards. So under normal circumstances, you wouldn't share this information with others. I'm going to call mine, let's say, new M6. Okay, so that's the name of my database. And we want this password to be fairly secure. I'm just going to go ahead and go strong password generator. There we go. And we're going to generate a strong password. Let me just not include punctuation. There we go. There's a random password right there. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And I'm going to paste that inside there and paste that there. And so, and you're wondering, oh, how am I going to remember that? I'm going to go ahead and paste it right inside here as well too. So all I've done here is I've just created a blank text note here where I'm going to temporarily store all this information, because we're going to need this information in the next step where we have to tell the installer where to put all this information. So let's just write down, this is the new database password. Okay. And we need to say the new database username. And I'm going to go ahead and create this. Okay. So this is going to create a user. There's the username up there. There's the password here. I'm going to go ahead and click create user. And on the next page, I should get a confirmation. And yes, okay, so it added the user. There we go. And the way that Bluehost is configured is that it automatically adds this prefix before all my usernames. Yours might be very different, okay? But the important thing is to get the full username. So I'm just copying this. I just used a keyboard shortcut there to do that, and I used a keyboard shortcut to paste that right there. Always cut and paste, okay? Don't try to actually type the stuff out. That's when mistakes happen, and this has to be perfectly correct. And make sure that you didn't accidentally, copy the quotation marks or an extra space or something after that. So there we go. We've got the new database username, the new database password, and yeah, that looks correct. If I had forgotten to paste that over, I could have cut and pasted it from here. Okay, we're good. We created the user and the password. So let's go back. And now let's create our database. Okay, and again, this is right at the top here. It's at the same page that we were at before. And we're going to give this a name. Let's call this new M6DB. Okay, we'll go ahead and click create database. And there we go. We've added the database, and there's the name of it right there. And the good news about this is that you're not going to have to, type this in to log into your site or anything like that. This is strictly something we program into the site. We do it once and set and forget. Okay. So new database name. There it is. And yes, this is the way Bluehost is configured. It adds a prefix in front of all database names and in front of all database usernames as well too. So my database name is this right here. My database username is this, and my database password is this. Now there's one more step we need to do here. And what that is we need to actually associate the two, because currently Bluehost doesn't know that you want to connect that particular database with the database username and password. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and go down here, say add user to database. Okay. See how what I mean by this isn't terribly intuitive, or I don't think it's very intuitive, but hopefully you're following along. We're going to find the username that we just created. And where's the username? Right there, new M6. That's the one we just created. And we're going to add it to the database that we just created, which is down here, new M6DB. Okay, and so there's the username, there's the database name. All we're doing is we're giving access to this user to this particular database. We're just basically saying, hey, we want this user to be able to access this database. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click add. On the next page, it's going to ask us, well, what privileges do you want? Okay, we want to give them all privileges for this. Okay, just keep it really simple. So this basically means that we are going to allow our WordPress installation to do anything it wants to this particular database. It needs to be able to do that in order to write to the database and save information in there. So we'll go ahead and click make changes. And now, there we go. We have a confirmation message here that says the user has been added to the database right there. So we can click go back. Okay, so did that make sense? Okay, we're done this part. This is the hard part, and we're completely done. We need to make absolutely sure that we have this information recorded somewhere safe right here. So here I've got this temporary file right here that lists the database name, the username, and the password. If you are using, again, if you're using cPanel on your web hosting package, it's going to look very similar to this process, okay? The page is going to look very much like this. You're going to be doing all this stuff on this one page. If you're using a different web hosting provider that doesn't use cPanel, okay, it might look a little different. chances are the process is actually going to be simpler. Because I know, for example, on DreamHost, they have a much simpler interface for their particular for creating MySQL databases, but essentially you're still doing the same thing. You are creating a username and password, and you are creating a database name, and you're associating them all together. It's just I find that their interface is a little bit more intuitive and a little easier to follow. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe GoDaddy's is a little easier as well too. That's not to say that one web server is better than another. I mean, this process is not all that hard to do, and you only have to do it once, so that's good. But the important thing is make sure you have some way of creating a username and password, a MySQL database username and password, as well as a new database, okay? You don't have to do anything to that database. You don't have to add any information into it. All you're doing is you're just creating an empty database along with the credentials to be able to access that database, okay? I hope that makes sense, okay? If you're kind of scratching your head over it, don't worry, it's fine. As long as you have this information right here, as long as you've got the database name, the username and password, and you've associated the two, then you're ready for the next step. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. For ad-free versions of all my videos and other bonus content, check out my online courses at robobunny.attack.com. Thanks for watching.